What's up, Soul Fam? So I had a friend of the universe contact me and ask me what it's like in prison. And I was thinking, what the fuck is it like in prison? And I was thinking, not much different than out here, except we believe we have a little bit more leeway. But it's all the fucking same, because we put ourselves in prison out here as well. We limit ourselves. At least in prison, you know those limits are real. You know you can't walk out that gate. You know, out here, you don't even see a gate. But you just fucking can't get you can't get past it, you know? So, prison, honestly, nowadays, it's like a fucking adult fucking daycare. You know, and it's like adult daycare. And I've been in maximum security prisons, and I've been in minimum. And don't get me wrong, like, it will go down in a maximum state. You know? It will go down in anyone, really. But for the most part, if you ain't looking for it, you won't find it. So, but yeah, just, you know, it's all about sticking to yourself, or finding, you know, maybe you click up with a friend, or not a friend, but, you know, somebody you resonate with. And that's pretty much all you do, is freaking live the same day out, day in and day out. Every day's the same. Every day. And the only way you could determine that, you know, it's Monday from Friday, is what food you're eating. But how about what I've learned from all that, from going to prison? What have I learned? Well, I've learned that spirit will only allow you to get away with so much shit before it's like, nope, bop, smack you in the head, bop, smack you in the head. And sometimes it takes a little bit. It takes a few times. You know, it took me 3 times. So, like, in the beginning of my adolescence, like from, let's just say, 15 to really 27. But let's just say, because there was always gaps in between my incarcerations. So let's just say my first incarceration was 42 days. And man, I was so blessed, because I got locked up on a warrant, on a juvenile warrant, and for not going to court, because I knew I was gonna drop dirty. So I was just like, fuck that. And I got lucky as fuck, because the dude when I got arrested, the dude I got caught with, he had a gun on him, and we were about to do some stupid shit. And the night that led to this, to me getting arrested, was absolutely ridiculous. There was a high-speed police chase, a burglary, fleeing and eluding. It was all types of crazy nonsense. So when I got actually arrested on this warrant, and it was only a failure to appear, I was so blessed, because I was like, man, I could have been here on numerous crimes, and I'm just here on a warrant. I'm like, okay, I'm blessed. And so I did 42 days. That was my first time in county jail. And I don't know, you kind of get used to it, you know? You just adjust. People fear these things, but you'll be so surprised to how well you adjust. Like, that's like the gift of every human being, is adaptability, for the most part. And that's all has to do with how well you surrender and just accept things. The moment you just accept them, you can go on living free of suffering. Yeah, right. So I got out 42 days later, right? A couple days after getting out, a friend called me and says, hey man, me and my brother are going out fucking kicking some doors and you want to come with? And I'm like, nah man, I'm going to keep my motherfucking nose clean. I'm good, man. But thanks. Sure enough, that next day, another friend had called me and said, hey man, so-and-so got locked up yesterday for burglaries. I'm like, I could have been right with them. But I listened, right? Well, sure enough, a few weeks later, maybe a month, I was drinking with my family, my sisters. Well, my sister who had passed away and her husband and some friends. And like fast forward, I'm drunk. I'm at my mom's house. I'm staying with my mom. And I can't help but to think I need to go out and I need to fucking go kick a door in because like I need to get paid. That was my mindset. And I'm like, I can't do that. Fuck that. I can't go back to jail. Fuck that. And I'm fighting this urge. And it's like overpowering. Like, I cannot not do this. I'm sitting there like fighting tooth and nail not to make this poor decision. But I just said, fuck it. I said, I'm just going to put my shoes on and walk out this door, and what will be, will be. I don't know if I'm going to do anything. I'm not saying that I am, but I'm not saying that I'm not. And I walked out that door. And I got about maybe a block down from the apartments. There was these two really big buildings. They were like offices for like doctors and all types of shit. They're just offices. And the whole building was glass. And I see a brick on the ground. I pick it up and I'm like, I'm going to throw a brick to this bitch. And I said, God, if this ain't for me anymore, I was like, then I'll be in jail by the morning. So I fucking walk up to that fucking building and I just toss a rock right through it. Bust it. Just go right up in there. And it's just a big long corridor, hallway of doors on each side. Boom, 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 boom. And I just start walking in and just kicking in doors and ransacking these offices. And, you know, after about 6 or 7 offices, I'm like, I didn't really find much in there. So I'm like, man, there ain't going to be nothing in here. I need to go. I was already in there for quite a bit, probably maybe like 30 minutes. Just taking my fucking time, not giving no fucks. And I look out the window right before I leave, and sure enough, there's a squad car right in the parking lot. And I'm like, damn. So I kind of panic a little bit, but not too much. But I'm like, what to do? So I end up in this staff bathroom in their break room. And I take one of their towels to dry their hands, and I stick it under the door, and I just lock it. And I hear the police officer yell, "We're letting the canines through. If anybody's in there, come out now or you're going to get tore the fuck up." I'm like, I ain't going. I ain't going. Fuck that. So I stay in there. And I remember I had found this thing of mace in somebody's desk, I think. And I had this mace. And I had opened it on accident and got it in my hands. I remember I got a little mace in my face. Not much, though, but I remember that. And sure enough, you know, I ended up fucking passing out. I took like a nap. I don't know, it had to have been at least an hour nap, maybe even more. I passed out in that bathroom. And I wake up, and I open the door, and I look out the window again, and sure enough, that same squad car sits right there in the same place. Didn't move. And I'm like, maybe it's just keeping, guard until, they can come and fix it. So nobody comes in here and trespass. So I go to make it to the exit out the break room, which leads into the corridor, that long hallways with all the doors I was kicking in. And I remember I was crawling on my hands and knees because I opened up the door and I crawled out the door, and I looked to the right and I looked to the left down the hallway, and sure enough, as soon as I looked to the left, a cop was walking in. It had to have been a good, like, at least 50 yards, half a football field. But when he walked in, he was like staring at the ground, and I was like, oh shit. And I creep right back in the door and I close it, and I was like, oh shit. And I go into this other office that was connected in there, and it was like a filing room, and it went like a U. You walk in, you could turn to the left, and then you could turn to the left again, and it went like a U. And I went all the way in the back there where these filing cabinets were, and I took my shoes off. I had some gloves. I took them off, put them in my shoes, and I just laid out. And then I pretty much pretended that I was sleeping. I was just pretending I was sleeping. And I was just hoping that the cop didn't see me. But sure enough, he wanders in. He wanders in there somehow, not even knowing. I don't even think he saw me, but he wandered in because I heard him, and I'm like, oh shit. And then he comes into that filing cabinet room, and I'm like, oh fuck. And I hear him creeping around in there. And granted, I'm pretending I'm sleeping. I got my belly on the ground, you know. I'm laying down. Got my hands in, you know, on my head. It's all fucked up. And, you know, he's in there. And sure enough, he creeps around the corner and he didn't see me. But he's looking in my direction, but he's looking up. And then all of a sudden, he looks down and he sees me there, and I scare the fuck out of him. He's like, oh shit, what the? And he runs up to me, dude. And I'm fucking laying on my belly, and I got my feet spread out like this, and he runs up to me and kicks me right in my joint. Boom! And I jump up. What the fuck? You know, he hit me, but he could have got me a lot worse than he did. You know what I mean? I kind of I played it off like he got me worse than he did. And I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck? Where am I? I'm playing stupid. I'm like playing drunk because I was drinking, you know? And sure enough, you know, I was just playing it stupid. I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I? What's going on? Oh, and then sure enough, he's like, yeah, right, you know, fuck you. Play stupid, you know, cuffs me up, fucking walks me out, puts me in the squad car. And he goes, he's the guy, the arresting officer's like, I remember you. I remember you from about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. You gave me a bogus name. Yeah, because me and my buddy had got, right before this high-speed police chase before then, I had got arrested. And I gave him an alias. I gave him a fake name. And they fingerprinted me. And sure enough, they released me before the fingerprints came back. And then the fingerprints didn't match when it came back, but I was already gone. That was a blessing all on its own. But anyways, so he's like, yeah, I remember you. I'm going to charge you for that too. I'm like, oh, okay. And I get in the squad car and shit. And then I get brought in for questioning. And it's a whole thing. And so I end up in the county jail. And I'm sobering out because I was drunk when this is all going on. I'm sobering out. And I look at the fucking dry erase board where they got everybody's charges written down, and I see M. Sheldon, 7 counts, class 2 burglary. I'm like, oh fuck, 7 class 2 burglaries, damn. And that was 7 class 2 burglaries, so that's 3 to 7. 3 to 7 years is a class 2 felony, 3 to 7 years. And I was already getting in trouble, so I had a background. 3 to 7 years times 7. You know, and I'm like, fuck. So I'm in jail again, and I wasn't even out for like a month, and it's about to be my girlfriend's birthday, and it seems to be a reoccurring theme that I just keep on getting locked up. And, you know, I end up spending about 3-4 months in jail, and, oh, it gets better. Gets better. I 3-4 months in jail. Fucking end up getting out, right? With a whole bunch of restitution. So I ended up getting a lawyer, a public defender, but this one ended up being a pro bono lawyer, which ends up being a lot better because it's an outside attorney that is just doing the pro bono work. But anyways, so he was like, man, if you want to wait, like, because it was Friday that I went to court, and he's like, if you just want to wait and come back Monday, I'll get a lot of this fucking restitution dropped. My thirsty ass was like, man, I'm looking to get out right now. And I was like, fuck it, I'll eat that restitution, you know. He's like, all right. And shit, that shit bit me in the ass, because I got out. I don't even think I was out a few weeks. You know, I started drinking again because I was like, I can't smoke weed, you know. That shit sticks around in the system. So my dumb ass is just drinking. And when I drink, I get stupid. And sure enough, I had gotten a little job, was doing all right and shit. I had lied on the application and told them I didn't have a felony, and it came back that I did. And because I lied, I lost the job. So I was ass out, and I'm like, fuck. And it was Friday. And restitution was coming around, and I knew I had to pay it. I had to pay like $300 a month or something ridiculous, $200. And sure enough, I told a friend, I'm like, man, I'm about to get real gully. I'm like, this fucking restitution's coming around. Either way, bro, either way, I'm either gonna hit a sting, get this little money, and pay this restitution, or not get anything, come up empty-handed, be booked, or get booked from fucking trying to hit this thing. So either way, I was in a fucked up mindset, and I fucking hit it. So I end up that day, I remember waking up that I told my friend that. I was like, I'm gonna get gully, bro. Like, either way, I'm gonna get this money or I'm gonna be booked, bro. So he's like, yup. He's like, shit, I'm with you, bro. I'm like, fuck it. I was like, I ain't even asking you to get out like that. I'm just saying, bro. And that night, I ended up getting drunk as fuck and having like 2 Xanax, like 2 footballs. It's like a bar. And I was tore up. And I remember hitting the whole stang. I mean, this is gonna be a long video, guys, but fuck it, we're here. So, you know, we're walking and we're on this busy road. It's Jefferson Street. This is in Joliet. And right on Jefferson Street, right past this street called Rainer, there was this strip mall, and it had a fucking dentist's office and a music shop, and I don't know what else was in there. And for some reason, we ended up over there, and before I knew it, I was breaking into this damn dentist's office. And I was going through their shit, and I thought I came up with a fucking big-ass box of fucking hydrocodone. I wasn't sure because I was drunk and on Xanax, but I was pretty sure. And there wasn't really anything else in there. I was trying to get one of those fucking those nitrous tanks, but those were too big anyways. So I ended up leaving that place, and fucking me and my buddy ended up started breaking into the store, except this one was foolish because it's right on the street. Like, here's Jefferson Street, we're right here in plain daylight. Not daylight, but because this is nighttime, but I mean spotlight, freaking street lights and whatever else shining on us. And every time there's a break, there's no cars coming through, we would go over there and just like break some of the window away. Fucking foolish shit. And sure enough, we got a good hole in the fucking, because the glass was like the stick together glass, so it wouldn't just shatter. So we had like carve a hole in there, and we got it big enough where he jumped through. and he was just handing me instruments. I think we ended up taking like 5 guitars. 5 guitars. And he hands them through the window. I have them. And then he hops back through. As soon as we got the guitars, I got 3 of them. He's got 2 of them. We're running across the street, and all of a sudden this car's like, "Hey, get back here!" And all of a sudden we're getting chased. I'm running through this neighborhood. I got this plastic bag over my wrist with the Viking in there, or what I think is. And then I got the 2 guitars in this hand and 1 in this hand. And I'm fucking jetting. And I'm pretty sure this dude's right behind me and everything. And all of a sudden the plastic snaps off and the Viking didn't go. But I got my hands full. I can't freaking stop. So I just keep running. Anyways, I get away. I end up making it back to my sister's house. Well, my sister my sister who's here, yeah, her. It's a long story. I can't even get into that because my sister and my best friend, his brother, they have a kid together. But anyways, off topic. So I make it back. Trevor, I don't see him. I'm like, fuck, man, I think he got caught. Shit, I didn't even mean to use his name, but oh well, it's all good. But he's like, I was like, I think he got booked. You know, so I end up passing out on the couch, and sure enough, I wake up to Buddy coming home like 5 in the morning. I'm like relieved, like, oh, he didn't get booked. Sweet, thank you. And he tells me the story of how he had to lay in a cut for like 2 hours because pretty much, you know, there was a chase. Anyways, this is how everything is connected, and you can't escape. No fate. No fucking fate. No, you get your karma, right? So check this out. So I still had, I think, 3 of the guitars or 2 of them. Either one. I think it was 2. And I stashed them in the back. And when we had woken up to my sister and my best friend's brother, because they had a kid together, arguing about who was going to wake up with the kid, and they were going at it. And for some reason, there was a thread of saying, well, I'll call the police. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And sure enough, the police get called. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. So I moved the merch is the guitars, to the back porch. I call a friend and I ask him to come pick me up ASAP. They're like, yeah, I'm on my way. Well, sure enough, the police show up. They're at the front door. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm at the back door. That's where the merch is at. The guitars. I freaking walk out the back door, and I'm walking down the driveway, and another cop car pulls up. And I'm like, oh shit. You know, okay. So cop gets out of his car, and he walks up the driveway, and he's like, are you from this residence? I'm like, oh, it's my sister's house. I stay the night here, but I'll be leaving here soon. He's like, oh, okay. And he walks up the driveway, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. So he's going up the back driveway, and sure enough, he goes right to the back door, opens up the back door, and there's the guitars right there, still with their tags on them. And he's looking at them. He's like, whose are these? And everybody's kind of dumbfounded, and we're like, oh. And I come in, and I'm like, oh, those are my buddy Mike's. He collects them. He's an instrument collector. Oh, fuck. Oh, he's an instrument collector. Don't you know? God, officer, what's up with all these questions? And all of a sudden, all the attention's on the guitars now. And so they handle the domestic, but now they're concerned about these guitars. My ride shows up, but those guitars are the center of attention now. So I fucking leave. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm up. Because it's about to go down. So sure enough, I leave. And I'm kind of wigging out because I know shit's going to go down with them guitars. And sure enough, they collect the guitars and they bring them down to the instrument shop of that just got broke down. Some of these officers actually were coming from there. They were already aware of this freaking musical shop getting broken into. And then they're like, musical shop getting broken into 2 miles away, a mile and a half away. And then we got a domestic here where 2 guitars come up brand new with tags. So they bring them down there and say they identify the guitars as theirs. And then they go back to the residence. Trevor gets arrested, and because they had the camera, so they get arrested. And then they say they knew there was another person involved, so they arrest his brother Patrick, who called the police in the beginning for the domestic. So now he's arrested. And while he got arrested, he had a bowl and some weed on him or something. So he had a goofy ass charge like that. So it just all started getting bad. So those 2 were in jail, and they were like, you're not, unless your brother turns himself in, Patrick's gonna be in here. I'm like, so at this whole time, I'm laying low at my mom's house. I got the doors locked and everything. And like I would pass out because I didn't want to live with it. Like it was such a burden. I was so stressed out because I knew it was all bad. And I knew I was going back to jail. I just knew it. And I would pass out, and then I would wake up to some knocking, and I'd look, and it was my sister knocking on the door. But I just knew like she was fucking, the police were right outside just waiting, so I never answered the door. And, sure enough, that night, I had left with the intentions of just, like, turning myself in. And I remember I went to my sister, Lindsay, my sister who had passed away recently, and she was working at this restaurant with the friend who I had called to come pick me up with the guitars. And they worked at this restaurant, and I went there, to go talk to them and shit. And, I was sitting at a table, and sure enough, 2 police officers walk in, and I know I'm wanted. Like, cops are out there looking for me. I'm like, fuck. So I'm laying low in the booth with my hoodie on and everything, and sure enough, they get me out the back door, and we all leave because it's the end of their shift. And I'm like, we go back to the apartment, and as soon as we pull in, there's a bunch of squad cars, and I see my mom walking with like 6 police officers. My mom, when your mom's pissed off, that look like, oh man, she's heated. So she was actually they were walking down to my sister's apartment to look for me. And I'm like, fuck. So I hop out the car, and I remember jumping the fence, and I was like, turn around, meet me around here, where I'm just getting dropped off I'm just going to the police station, turning myself in. And sure enough, that's what I did. And as soon as I went into the police station, I told them my name, and it was a wrap. And it's just so weird that we both get away with this crime just to get popped off on a fucking domestic. And that's how like, when your karma is due, you can't avoid it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm pretty confident I was meant to experience this incarceration, like this true, loss of freedom. And I experienced it. I had to learn that lesson 3 times. And it keeps going, It keeps going. So now I'm in jail again. And this time, I was on probation. Like, I just got off juvenile probation, and I transferred over to adult probation. And then now I'm here on a new crime. So I'm going to get booked. And fast forward, I think I'm in jail about, I'm in county for about 4.5 months, and I plea out to 7 years with the recommendation of getting boot camp. So they have this boot camp called IIP, Illinois Incarceration Program, something like that. And it's a boot camp. So, and it's not guaranteed that you'll get it. So it's like a complete gamble, that I took this fucking 7 years. And then if I do get the boot camp and I don't complete it, like I get quitted, then I have to go do that 7 years. So it was a big gamble, me taking it. But if I did it, I would get out like 5-6 months sooner than I would. I would pretty much cut my time in half. So I ended up taking that and going through the boot camp. That's a hell of an experience. So after you take your time in county jail, you usually, maybe a week goes by and then you get shipped off to state prison. And usually it's an intake center. Ow, bit my tongue. It's an intake center. Like I was in Stateville intake center, Crest Hill, Illinois. And then you spend about usually about 2 weeks minimum, and you're lucky, all the way up into average, let's just say a month, and you're freaking locked in this cell 24 hours a day. You get fed through a chuck hole, a little slot in your door, and you're in there for 24 hours a day. And then maybe a few days out the week, they'll let you out for yard, which is a little fucking dog cage pretty much, for like an hour. But every time I was incarcerated, it always ended up being around the winter, and you don't want to go out there in the winter because they'll leave your ass out there and you ain't got no thermalated anything. Like the shoes that you get are like garbage. Like people go out there and like 10 minutes later they're pounding on the door saying, "Officer, let me in, it's cold, I don't want to be out here no more." And they're like, "Nope, you still got another hour and 20 minutes left." And they'll leave them out there because they'll want to get out their cell. So they'll be like, "Fuck it, I'll go outside," and think they're going to be able to bear the temperatures. But Chicago's cold, get out of here. And so they'll go out there, and 10 minutes later, "Officer," and the officer's like, "You're burnt. You're out there for, your next hour and a half."